though this will tell you the same, I suppose.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Kiwi.
Yes, and joining me now in the Kiwi studio is Keith Ng from publicaddress.net. Good morning to you, Keith.
Morning, Wammo.
You've been following the situation with China and Google. It's almost like a Cold War has broken out between the two yesterday when Google announced that they were no longer prepared to censor Google.cn. What was behind this move?
Well, Google did its own investigation after their systems were hacked into, and they apparently what they discovered was that Chinese human rights activists' accounts there were attempts to hack into those, and that the goal was to get sensitive information from those email accounts. So the idea is that although they haven't actually said it explicitly, what the point they're making is that it's the Chinese government who are spying on them and other companies in an attempt to crack down at home.
So they've insinuated that it's the Chinese government.
Yeah, well, they've that's what they mean by it. I think that's pretty reasonable interpretation.
Yeah. It sounds like Google have finally reached the end of their tether when it comes to this.
Well, it did come at as a huge surprise. I mean, this is almost like a one company embargo, if you think about it in sort of old world politics. This is one company saying to a country, to the most populous country on earth, that, hey, if you don't stop this, we're going to embargo you.
Yeah.
And this is one company with one product that isn't even the market leader in that particular market, but it still has a huge amount of power because of what it represents.
And the fact that it's able to make this statement on a world stage and get the rest of the world noticing. But from what I remember, a few years ago, Google got a lot of flack from the West for censoring Google in China in the first place.
Exactly. At that point, their rationale was that it's better to have Google come in and give people access to a whole lot of information. Even though it's filtered, it's still more information than they had before, and just that step up was a significant change in itself. And I still think that that's true, but now what they've done, it's not so much withholding information, it's not so much just about taking away from Google, but about saying, hey, we represent the internet. It's a big call, but Google does represent for most of the world. I'll go and say it. For all of the world, Google represents the entire internet. It's a big deal. And to withdraw that, that's the thing that actually hurts. It's the symbol. It's saying to everyone in China that, hey, you know what? You guys don't actually have access to the internet. You just have a watered-down, filtered version of it.
So you say it's symbolic. So on the ground there in China, most people aren't going to notice the change.
I think they will. That there is, as I understand it, the propaganda ministry has told the major papers not to cover the story, but immediately after it was released, there were already a lot of people in China who knew about it. So, sure, right now, the protest that we've seen is coming out of Twitter, coming out of people who know how to get around the firewall, the censorship system that China uses to block information. It's reasonably easy to get around, but you have to know stuff about computers to actually do it. And it's those people who are most active at the moment. But it's not long till that information gets passed around.
Now, you've been following the Google.cn overnight. Have you seen any changes to the way information is being presented there?
There are a lot of conflicting reports at the moment. That right now, at the end of it, Google the search engine itself still says that some images, some search results have been censored due to, or have not been shown due to local laws and policies. But you are starting to see some signs that some stuff that you wouldn't think should get through. But right now, we don't really know why that's happened. Google have come out and said that officially that the censorship stuff is still in place, and they're going to negotiations with the Chinese government to talk about the process of taking it down. And if the Chinese government will not allow them to do that, then they're just going to shut down their servers. So that's the way they said they're going to go. But right now, people are claiming that they've actually found a lot of uncensored material on there. And I think that the reason for this
What would be an example of uncensored material?
Well, for example, images from the Tiananmen Square massacre. Not the most graphic ones, but ones that have been most widely distributed that have been going around the internet for
the graphic that symbolises that for the rest of the world would be the man standing in front of the tanks.
Exactly. That's one of the ones that's been showing up. But there are a lot more graphic images of people that were injured and killed on that day that show up in Google in other parts of the world that don't show up on the Chinese search engine at the moment.
Yeah.
And the idea is that it might not be a technical issue. It might just be that because so many people are looking at it, that it's starting to rise by itself.
So looking at Google, Google.cn now, what would be a search that we could put in there that would throw things
I
in?
understand one that's easiest to type in English is Beijing 1989. And you start to get images of exactly the ones that we talked about before.
Okay, so I'm searching right now for Beijing, and I'm guessing that image search is the second on the bar at the top. Which I'm right about. So Google is the same all around, even if it's in a different language, of course. Okay, yeah, and straight away you've got images of Tiananmen Square. There's a time cover that says Massacre in Beijing. There's also people posing in Tiananmen Square for photographs, possibly back in 1989, or it could have been last week. So this is obviously a big change straight away.
Well, the thing is, we can't really compare it with what we don't have very good information about what it was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So we don't know whether this is because of some kind of change in Google itself, or because it's some kind of change in user behavior. But right now, I think the point is that it doesn't matter anymore, that whether Google is still censored or not censored, this information is getting through.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. It's a big deal that people are looking for it. It's a big deal that people are seeing it.
Has there been an official response from the Chinese government at all?
Well, there are negotiations at the moment, but the government line that we're seeing through the mainstream Chinese publications is that this is just a bluff by Google, that Google won't be able to bring itself to quitting out of the biggest market in the world, and so this is just some kind of game.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, the Chinese government is eventually going to say, "Come to daddy," you know. We've got the people, and we've also got the money.
It's a huge market for Google to just step out of. Now, as I understand it, there's been reports of them having 10% to 20% market share. They're distant second to the local search engine, but 10-20% market share in China is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah.
So it's still a big thing for them to walk
It's
away
huge.
from.
I mean, that's probably billions, right?
It is.
Yeah.
But then again, it's, nothing is permanent. If they walk away now, it doesn't mean they can't come back in some point in the future, nor does it mean that there can't be some way around the current system and allow them to basically get into China without being there.
Do you think Google is betting that other companies are going to make the same stance as well?
You know what? I have no idea what Google is planning on. This is just it is historical news. It's a company embargoing a country. I don't really understand what the next step could be. It's
the boys from Silicon Valley taking on China, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a brave new world.
Yeah. It's a different world to what we woke up in yesterday morning.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this stuff 10, 20 years ago about, how companies are going to take over the world and how companies are going to influence global affairs. And this is the first time that they've just been so explicit about doing it, when they've just said, we are doing this, we are Google, and we want to change world affairs.
Well, Keith, if people want to follow your coverage of this, and there's some great postings up on publicaddress.net, and also images of some of your searches on google.cn as well. People can go to publicaddress.net and check out the On Point blog. Thanks very much, Keith.
Thanks.
Jim Beam Homegrown is just over a month away. The full lineup has just been finalised, and as expected, tickets will sell out.